you start from fundamental assumptions. What are those fundamental assumptions? They are that we are living on a finite planet, that there are ecological limits, that there are or will be resource constraints, that we have to live within our means in relation to those resource constraints, and that we have to design our economies to live within those means.
Tim Jackson, welcome to the European Trade Union Institute. You're here to present your new book, The Prosperity Without Growth, to the European Trade Union movement. So what would be your main message to the trade unionists here today?
For the trade union movement, I think there's never been a better time to be engaged in this debate. There's never been a more important time to be engaged in this debate. And this is not a hair shirt call for some kind of ecological utopia. It's actually about the fundamental basis of our economy over the next decades. And the economy works in part because people work in it. And the labour movement is the foundation for ensuring that there is decent, meaningful work that provides not just a livelihood but a sense of participation, and indeed is one of the foundations for prosperity itself. Having some meaningful participation in society is the basis for prosperity. We certainly have to think differently about redistribution. In fact, I would argue we have to think about distribution. It's not so much about pushing on growth, allowing some of the population to grow very much richer, and then hoping that we can then distribute that to those who are less well off. It's actually about providing fundamental services in an equitable way that allow us to flourish as a society and allow for a good distribution of incomes from the very start. This is a very tricky political climate. I wouldn't try to hide that at all in all sorts of ways. And of course I'm living it to some extent in the politics of the UK at the moment. But at the same time, it's a climate in which there is a call for an economy that works. And that's a very, very interesting call. It's an interesting call for all sorts of reasons. Firstly, the phrase itself actually was borrowed initially from the Green Party and then by the Labour Party, and is now an axiom for the right-wing Tory government. So this call for an economy that works actually is fundamental, even in this tricky politics. It does, I think, challenge some of what's coming through government, in particular its attempt to deregulate, to open up markets, to stimulate growth. The reality is we haven't seen those things being effective over the last 7 or 8 years. We haven't seen a return to that idea of relentless productivity growth and increasing output as a result of that, and the distribution of that output to wages. Those things have not materialized. And that's the reason, I think, why even in this climate we have to think differently. We have to think about the foundations of the economy of tomorrow. We have to think about an economy that works. The degrowth agenda has placed on the table the shortcomings of the growth-based agenda. When it comes to thinking about the kind of economy that we want, it seems to me that you should start with first principles. So start with the idea of what prosperity is, and then ask questions about what kind of economy you need to get there. And we need an economy that is not trashing the planet, that is providing people with livelihoods, that distributes work and incomes decently, and that provides the services that improve our quality of life. Now, it seems to me that if you start from there, rather than from deciding what kind of growth you need or what kind of growth rate you need or don't need, then you have the possibility to think creatively, to think fresh thoughts about the economy itself and how that economy is structured. And that, I believe, is the foundation for a renewal of the economy that we have without being hampered either by a growth target or a degrowth target, and thinking primarily about that relationship, that fundamental relationship between the economy and the prosperity it delivers.